host, rocking an awesome Cat in the Hat t-shirt, and once again, the last place finisher in the U.S. Open last weekend. I thought I had it this year, but turns out no. You got to practice. You got to golf, and so no green coat or whatever they get for that. But I have a good feeling about next year. I've been practicing at the putt courses. I think I got it. But before we get started with all this, I need to do a shout out to my folks at Rackspace.com. Not only did they buy me the cool flag in the background and the monitor, but they're hosting all this stuff. My blog is hosted on Rackspace. And if you download these episodes, and heaven help you if you do, I don't know why you do such a thing to yourself, but if you do, when you download these episodes, they're coming off of fast Rackspace servers. And for those of you that have been around the Todd Klindt ecosystem for a while, you remember the dark days when my blog was all slow and it would crash all the time when I would leave the house because the power would go out or my cat would unplug it or any number of things. That stuff doesn't happen anymore. My blog is fast, even though it's running SharePoint, which is the craziest piece. It's fast, it's reliable, I don't have a lot of problems with it. And the Netcasts are fast when you download them too. When I first started doing this, the Netcasts are really slow, got them up on a Rackspace server, and now they're fast like the wind when you download them. It's all because of Rackspace. So if you want fast, reliable servers, and you want me to keep getting cool things like that flag and that monitor, go out to Rackspace.com. You can go to Rackspace.com /SharePoint to see all the crazy stuff that we folks at the SharePoint part of Rackspace are doing. And if you're ever in San Antonio, come down and visit us at the castle. We got a slide you can go down. It's a great time. You'll love it. But that's Rackspace.com. Okay, so now we are off to the production notes part of the program. Everybody's favorite. This is the part of the program where I talk about all the stuff that I've done wrong the previous week, but only the previous week, because if I had to do it for more than the previous week, that would take the whole netcast. So got some things, got it all rendered pretty late last week. Have been busy with a couple things here at work. It's those guys at Rackspace again. Got it rendered out late and got it uploaded, and then realized that I rendered it wrong and had to re-render it. So I don't know if you guys remember from last week, those of you that are live and in the chat room, I kept misstating Eric Harlan's new URL for the SharePoint Saturday events. It is spsevents.org, but I kept saying it wrong, and so I had to put the call-outs to say what the right URL was and all that. I put the call-outs in before I put all the introduction stuff in. So when I put my title slide and the episode slide and all that, it pushed all of my video out 14 seconds, which made all my call-outs come in 14 seconds too early because it didn't lock them up. So that was awesome, and I didn't realize that until after I'd uploaded it and then was checking it, and all the call-outs were wrong. So I had to re-render everything, and that's my excuse for it. But they are uploaded now. Hopefully I'll be able to upload the RSS feed tonight, edit all that. It's uploaded into YouTube now, so you can go to youtube.com/ToddKlindtNetcast, and you can watch the video for 159 there. It'll be out on the RSS feeds and all that, hopefully tomorrow or the next day, and then I'll get the blog post done also. Now, one change that I'm going to try out this week, and let me know if this is a problem, is I'm only going to render out one video file for both Mac and PC. Excuse me. So up until, well, this week, I've created one MP4 file for the Macintosh platform and a WMV file for the Windows platform. But then as I was testing some stuff, I realized that all of my Windows boxes can play MP4 files. I don't need to do anything crazy. So I think I'm just going to keep doing all the Windows stuff as MP4 files as well. So if you're subscribed to the Windows video feed, you're going to notice the files aren't coming down as WMVs anymore. They're MP4s. Let me know if that's a problem. 159 is probably not the most indicative of that, because I was having all those crazy USB bus problems, and so the video is really small, but that's not because of the MP4 stuff, that's just because I'm a dummy. But let me know if that's the case, because if that's the case, then I'll just keep doing just the one video file, and that will save me a bunch of time. It's also one less thing for me to screw up. Everybody wins when there's fewer things for that. So let me know if you're doing the Windows video And of course, if you can subscribe to this any number of ways. You can subscribe at YouTube, youtube.com/Todd Klindt Netcast. If you go to toddklindt.com/netcast, there are RSS feeds for MP3, Apple Video, or Windows Video, and those are the ones I just talked about. Or you can go to the iTunes Store or Zune and download the audio or subscribe to the audio there. Many, many different ways to get your stuff. So, and the other thing I mentioned last week, I was having some problems. For the last, I don't know, couple of months since I rebuilt my netcasting rig, I've been having all these crazy USB bus bandwidth problems that I never had before. And I saw some stuff on the internet about it, and it was because I'm doing HD and all that. But I'd always been doing HD and didn't know what the problem was. Did some investigation. Looks like there are some new USB drivers for that box. I downloaded them about an hour and a half ago, which I know is dumb to download, put on new patches right before going online, but it seems to have helped. So hopefully we'll not have some of those problems. Hopefully this week's video will be big and huge, and there's no popping on the audio, and all that things seem to be working better. So keep your fingers crossed for that these USB drivers are working. Okay, so start off with a couple of things. First, I want to do a couple of shout outs in the chat room right now. So got a good crowd in the chat room right now. First off, Doug Heminger, who's been a long time sufferer of the Netcast. His birthday was the 13th, so happy birthday to Doug. And I'm not going to say how old he was, but he looks damn fine for a man his age. I'll leave it at that. Also, a couple of months ago, I mentioned on the Netcast that the PowerShell.org folks were having the Power Scripting games. And the Power Scripting games are something that has been around for a few years. The Hey Scripting guy from Microsoft, Ed Wilson, had it for a while. I think this is PowerShell.org's first year hosting it. That's Don Jones and a bunch of folks. And I mentioned that a couple of months ago, encouraged people to get signed up. One person from here, Joanne Klein, signed up for it, and a couple of other people who have stumbled across the Netcast are also signed up for it. One of them is Mike Robbins, or Mike F. Robbins on Twitter. Both of those guys signed up for it, and I was watching the leaderboards and all that. I didn't sign up for it myself. I had some other stuff going on. I knew I just wasn't going to have time. I know that's a crappy excuse, and if any of you guys would have given me that same excuse, I'd have told you were full of it. But that's my excuse. But anyway, both Joanne and Mike were really active in it. I watched all their tweets come across when they submitted things and all that, and they both did very well. Not only did they do well, Mike actually won the advanced advanced events. They have the way they work it is they have beginner and advanced, and they have the same problem, but they go at it in different ways. Different things are expected. Mike won the advanced thing. That's pretty cool. I'm pretty proud of that. So hats off to Mike Robbins for winning that. Hats off to everybody who took place in that. PowerShell is awesome. I talk about it a lot in the Netcast. I did some time at the Power Scripting booth at TechEd. You can't be a SharePoint admin and not just be really, really comfortable in PowerShell. And these folks are a couple of folks that are walking that walk. So that's good. I'm glad to see that. That those guys did that. So clap of the hands to that. And if you want to go to PowerShell.org, you can get signed up there. They're trying to get a good PowerShell community going there. I talked to Don Jones, the guy that's running it a couple of weeks ago at TechEd, and he kind of gave me their roadmap for what they want to do with it. It's really good stuff. I plan on getting a little more involved with that. So if you've got PowerShell type questions and issues or just want to hang out, PowerShell.org's got a bunch of forums and stuff there too. So that is good stuff. Also wanted to talk about the big news this last week is that the June 2013 patches started trickling out for our favorite SharePoint products. They all came out for SharePoint 2007. I lost track of all those a while back. I wouldn't say that nobody cares because we do have an awful lot of 2007 still out in the wild, but that's just one of them I don't track very much. But SharePoint 2010, which is hugely popular, it got the full complement of patches last week. And for those of you keeping track at home, that puts the current version of SharePoint 2010 at 14.0.7102.5000. So 7102 is essentially the build number. Interesting thing about this is the build number is higher than the Service Pack 2 beta, public beta that came out a couple of months ago. So I'm curious how all that's going to fit together. If you look at the build numbers in the June patch, you can tell they're kind of commingled and all that. So not quite sure where all that's going to shake out. But they do, that is coming up. So, but we got that patch out there. You can find out all of the stuff that I know about that patch by going to toddklindt.com/SP2010 JUN13CU. I tried to make that short URL intuitive, but anyway, or if you just want to start from scratch, you can go to toddklindt.com/SP2010 builds, and that will give you all of them, and then you can find the link to the most current one at the bottom there. And then if you want up to the minute, timely information about that, you can follow my Twitter feed at SP2010 patches, and that will, as soon as when I add things and all that, I will tweet that out so you can find out about that. But as always, don't install these patches just because they're out. Read the knowledge base article linked in my blog post, see what it fixes, see if it fixes a problem that you've got, and then install it in a test environment, and then start rolling it through. But don't install it the day they come out. These things are notorious for not being tested very well, and I don't want you to be the person that I make fun of the next time I go up on stage and start talking about people who shouldn't have put patches on. Okay, so all of the 2010 patches are out. So we've got Foundation, we've got Server, we've got Project. It's all out there. SharePoint 2013 is a little different story. We've got Foundation, and we've got the Office web apps. They are out. I haven't figured out a way to put those on my thing yet, but I'll get back to that. So we've got Foundation, we've got Office web apps. Server and Project are not out yet. They are delayed. Sort of makes sense. There's more things in there, so they got to do more testing. And for goodness sakes, Microsoft, don't rush these patches. If they're not ready, that's cool. You still got like 2 weeks left in the month. Take your time. Do it right. Nobody here wants to rush you. But for Foundation, if you install that, you're at 15.0.4517.1003. So the 1003 tells you that they didn't quite get it right the first time, so they had to do it a couple times. But again, no rush. Wait till it's ready. Wait till it's baked. We're not in any hurries here. But once those come out for Server, I will add those, tweet those, all that kind of stuff. Remember, though, you do need to be at the March 2013 public update for SharePoint 2013 to install any subsequent patches. So if you're at RTM now, you have to put that March 2013 public update on. I tested the April CU. It would not install without the March one. I have not tested the June one because I didn't have a Foundation VM handy, but I assume they're every bit as serious about it now. So make sure that you've got that on your machines, your servers, so that you can get that new patch if you need it. When that patch comes out, I'll have the wiki page for that at SP2013 JUN13CU, and then you can also follow all of the 2013 patches at toddklindt.com/SP2013 builds. Mark Chrisman in the chat room commented that those short URLs sound like Star Trek dates. Yes, they do. That's on purpose. And so that SharePoint 2013 doesn't feel left out, I've got a Twitter account for that, and that's twitter.com/SP2013 patches. Again, as I add things to the SharePoint 2013 builds list and the wikis and all that, I tweet that out on those. So keep on top of that. Again, don't install any of those patches unless you have to, and then let it bake in a test environment for like a month. I wouldn't put it on anything before a month. Ian in the chat room is asking, what about slipstreaming? Do you have to slipstream the March CPU first. Well, yes and no, Ian. Trevor kind of already delivered the bad news for you there. Slipstreaming just doesn't seem to work. You can slipstream the March public update into RTM SharePoint 2013, but after that it doesn't work. And it's that whole problem that showed up in August, the August 2010 patch for SharePoint 2010. You can slipstream it, but then when you install it, it tells you that all the patches weren't installed and you got to do a bunch of work. So for right now, what you have to do is you have to install it afterwards. Now, you can install it before you build the farm, and you can install it before you bring a machine into an existing farm, but you do have to run that installer more than once. I don't know why that's broken. I don't know what changes they've made under the hood, but it's just not in good shape. They've changed the structure of some of those patches. There's a crazy cab file that hangs out off to the side now. So slipstreaming is effectively broken on SharePoint 2010 and SharePoint 2013 with the current patches. So thanks for asking that, Ian. One of the things you'll notice when you go to the SharePoint 2010 version of the June 2013 CU is I'm trying to improve the look of the wiki pages. Now, anybody who's been to my blog or any of that kind of stuff knows I have no design skills whatsoever. I can't draw anything. I can't match fonts. I can't even match my clothes. If everything didn't go with khaki shorts and blue jeans, I mean, if they made Garanimals for adults, I would need that, to match the giraffe with the. Anyway, I can't design anything. So, because of that, the wiki pages for each patch looked horrible, terrible. I don't know why you guys put up with it. So I had one of our design folks take a look at it, and I said, give me a short list, give me like 5 things that I can improve on that. So he mocked it up and then sent it to me, and I did what I could within the bounds of the SharePoint wiki editor. But it looks a little better. I've increased a couple things, tried to make the important things readable, tried to format it a little better. The plan will be going forward, they'll all look like that. Going back, they will look like that as I have to edit things. I might not touch the old ones. We'll see. But let me know what you think. If there's changes that I can make to that wiki page that you would like, information that's not there, however, let me know what you think, because I'm kind of in the process of evaluating how that looks. Another thing that I'm working on in the background is improving how the regressions are listed, because right now there's a gap. If a regression's not fixed in the first patch after it shows up, it doesn't always show up because I don't paste it into every wiki page. So I'm working on that. I've got an idea in the background, having a couple of lists and all that kind of stuff. Laura Rogers, Wonder Laura, has been helping me with that, so we'll see about getting all that baked into that wiki page as well. But again, if you've got suggestions, you can hit me up on Twitter at Todd Klindt. I'll look at Twitter right now. Nope, just some spam. All right. Twitter.com, or you can email me, todd.klindt at rackspace.com, and just let me know suggestions, all that kind of stuff for the patches. A lot of people use those patch pages. That SharePoint 2010 patch page is far and away my most popular blog post by a factor of many. So I know it's out there, so I want to make it as easy for you guys to consume as possible. Okay, so speaking of making things pretty and easy to consume, this was something I meant to talk about last week, but ran out of time. Started chatting about tech ed and my new Surface RT that I love so much, and I ran out of time to do all my topics. One of the things that has been a problem for SharePoint 2013 around this app model is that you can't bundle branding as a SharePoint app. And it's a problem that's plagued the best of them. Some of the folks that I work with that do branding have complained about that mightily, that you can't create a SharePoint app that just runs, in the App Store, whatever, that does things like edit your master page or change your master page or whatever. And so those kind of things have to be either sandbox solutions or farm solutions. And you'll notice even Microsoft's own implementation of this, the Design Manager in SharePoint 2013, bundles its stuff up as sandbox solutions. So that's been a constant problem. And in order for SharePoint apps to really be taken seriously, that's something that they got to address. I'm sure that there's something. I'm sure there's something down the pike. but that's the case. So I was interested a couple of weeks ago when Chris O'Brien put out a blog post on how to change your master page with SharePoint Apps. So it turns out he has found a way to kind of exploit a bug to get your master page loaded in there where it needs to go and trick SharePoint into rendering it for you. So he's pretty cool in his blog post. Chris is a really smart guy, and so he's pretty cool about mentioning in his blog post, hey, this is pretty cool. You probably shouldn't do this in production. This is probably a bug, and it will probably go away, but people have been asking, so here's a way to do it. So that was just an interesting thing. I'm not suggesting that you go out there and do that, but you can find it at SharePointNutsandBolts.com. Of course, there'll be a link in the show notes and all that. But just from a, I don't know, academic standpoint, it's been interesting listening to people say you couldn't do it and then find out that that is actually a bug, that if you exploit the bug, then you can do it, and Chris found the way. So I wanted to give Chris some link love on that. And this one, I don't remember if I talked about this last week or not, but Microsoft put out a little white paper on how to decide where how to host your SharePoint. If you want to, it's called Understand and Evaluate Hosting Options for SharePoint Farms. And actually, the more I talk about this, the more I think I did talk about it last week. But I'm going to get to talk about it again because it's my show. My name's right in the title, so I get to talk about things more than once if I want to. So basically, they talk about the different types of hosting. You know, Office 365, on-premises, hosted SharePoint, you know, hosted on-premises SharePoint, that kind of stuff. And they talk about what you can do and what you can't do in each of them to kind of give you an idea which one's right for whatever you're trying to do. And then they talk about these hybrid solutions where you kind of marry the best of both worlds. My official note taker in my chat room, Lori Gowen, says I did talk about it last week. And there's sort of an implied, if you would have looked at your notes, you'd know this, toned all this, but it's a good enough white paper. And since I work for a hosting company, I feel almost obligated to mention all this again. But it's a great little white paper you can download from TechNet. We'll have some show notes that talk about that. So, all right, as I look, okay. Here's another one. So speaking of my official note taker, Lori Gowen, Lori published a blog post last week. Yeah, last week. That was kind of interesting, and her and I talked about it a little bit, so I knew it was coming. But it is the title is Upgrading InfoPath and the User Profile Service Data Connection. And what the blog post covers is how to use the User Profile Service and pull in user information into InfoPath forms to fill out stuff in your form. And it covers some stuff new with 2013 is people actually using claims as opposed to SharePoint 2010 when I told everybody you shouldn't use claims. Now with 2013, you have to use claims if you're going to use anything cool like the Office web apps or the Workflow Manager or SharePoint apps. All that stuff requires claims. And so that adds some particularly complicated things to things like InfoPath, pulling user information around, because now it's going to have that claims ID that looks like, I:/bang/click and all that. So it makes it difficult to work with some of that stuff. So Lori's blog post talks about all that. It gives you a link to a blog post with the claims information that lets you kind of break all that down and understand what all those things mean, because it does actually make sense. It's not random characters like I initially thought it was. But then she talks about how to pull all that stuff into your form so that when users, the current user, whoever, you can pick a name and fill out some fields. So I don't really do much with InfoPath myself, but it is just curious to see how all this stuff can work together, how you can manipulate the data coming across and make use of it. So that was a good blog post. Thought I would give Lori a shout out. You can see her blog at pointgowen.com, and that's pointgowin.com, and that's it's there. So let's look at that. So in the chat room, folks are chatting about talking about my sites, and Ian mentions that SkyDrive Pro is a great thing to use as a replacement for the home user folder. That's exactly right. We've talked about SkyDrive Pro in the past. It's been one of the cool things that I've dealt with a bunch in SharePoint 2013, so I like to bring it up. But SkyDrive Pro, the location, is your My Site document library. So, you go to your click My Site anyway. And then SkyDrive Pro is also the client and the functionality that syncs it down to your desktop. And so you can have your SharePoint My Site document library in Explorer, making it easy to work with things, and then as you change documents and all that, they get synced back up to SharePoint. This functionality is nothing new. In SharePoint 2010, it was called SharePoint Workspaces. It was called Groove for a while, and actually the SharePoint or the SkyDrive Pro executable is still Groove.exe, but it's much better now in SharePoint 2013. So if you've dismissed these things before, take a look at them again. I've got a couple of blog posts on them that kind of walk through what works and what doesn't, but definitely something to consider if you're working with document libraries and people syncing stuff to their desktops and all that. Okay, so that is most of this week's topics. And I did want to mention next week. So next week, I will be at TechEd Europe in Madrid. As a matter of fact, 7 days from now, 168 hours from now, I will be in Madrid sleeping, because it's like 1:30 in the morning there right now. So I will not be doing my Netcast at the normal time next week. Now what I want to do is do it at a time that's good for Europe. But we all know what my track record is like when I try to do this thing live with hotel internet or conference internet. So I don't know, just kind of keep an eye out on Twitter or on my blog. If I figure out, once I get to Madrid and figure out the internet situation, I'll let you know what I'm going to be doing. But it will not be next Monday night. There will not be the Netcast at 8:30 Central U.S. time, because I'll be over there. I'll be sleeping. So that is that. So now let's take this off to the shameless self-promotion part, my favorite part of the Netcast. So I don't know if you guys have heard, I took part in a little book writing experiment here. Professional SharePoint 2013 Administration, and you can see my name right there on the cover. Let me get that close at both cameras. Okay. So one of my goals for this book was that when you went to Amazon and you searched for SharePoint 2013, that this book would be the #1 result. We hit that. I don't remember when. It took us a couple of days, but we got it. So now if you go to Amazon, type SharePoint 2013, our book pops up first, so I'm pretty excited about that. While you're there, go ahead and click it. Go ahead and buy a copy. Nobody regrets it. Everybody likes it. So you can buy that. You can go to Amazon. You can also go to my blog, and if you want to buy, you could buy this very book right here. This book that I'm holding in my hand, if you go to store.toddklindt.com or my blog where I've got those many links for this, you can buy a signed copy, and I will sign it. I will write things here. I won't sign it with my left hand. Sign it and ship it off right to you. And you can get your own autographed copy or buy it at Amazon. I do whatever. But that's going well. We gave a few of them out a couple weeks ago. I'm happy about that. A bunch of you folks in the chat room have bought them. Thanks so much for that. If you do have one, do me a favor after you've read it and you've got a feel for the book, leave a review on Amazon. Those things are hugely important. They're like gold to people trying to sell books. That's how you get ranked higher. It definitely drives sales. So if you've got a copy of the book, please do me a favor. Go out to Amazon, write a review, and be honest. I'm not asking you to lie and give it 5 stars, though it clearly deserves 5 stars. But go ahead and leave a review. I would appreciate that personally. Let's see. TechEd Europe. Oh, so I guess I'll put in the chat room. Of course, everybody in the chat room's already got that. So TechEd Europe, I mentioned that a little bit. If you're going to be in Europe at TechEd Europe, for goodness sakes, come find me. I'm going to be hanging out in the SharePoint Lounge a bunch. I'll be at the Ask the Experts thing. I'll be all over the place. Come find me, say hey, shake my hand, let me know how things are going. and I would love to see you. So, yep. So Mike Robbins, I mentioned him earlier. When I signed his book, I signed it in PowerShell because I'm cool like that. But yeah, every book is unique. I did dig that. So yeah, and I see, yep, Ustream's being fussy. Hopefully it's gonna be okay. All right, so that's it. So SP TechCon gonna be there. That is August 11th through the 14th in Boston. Hope to see you there. And then I want to kind of going to do some foreshadowing here. Going to be having a training announcement coming up here in the next week or so. Kind of excited about that. If you need some SharePoint training, something a little close to home, going to be talking about that. So keep an eye out on that. I'll have it on my blog and whatever, but there's going to be something cool coming up. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate the folks in the chat room. There's some great discussions, some things that I wanted to talk about but forgot. So I'm going to add those to my next one, but I see a couple of notes that I need to talk about. Chat room's always lively. If you find yourself bored on a Monday night and want to come hang out, if you go to toddklindt.com/netcast, you can join the chat room. It's an IRC chat room. I got a web part and all that. You can heckle me live. You can hang out with the peanut gallery here and chat amongst friends, chat about SharePoint. Usually try to show up there about an hour early so you can come in and say hey while I'm setting things up and all that. But I do record this every Monday night at 8:30 Central, except for next Monday night and 2 Monday nights ago, but every Monday night besides those. So I'd love to have you come to the chat room, hang out, say hey. And then you can, of course, find everything else out about this at toddklindt.com/blog and toddklindt.com/netcast. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Enjoy your week off next week. I'll find some time, but I'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Thanks. Bye.